went through a ton. So now I'm going to take it back down to basics. This is a raw material. For a raw material, you can fill out all this if you want to. At some point in time in your system, to take full advantage of Vicinity, you should fill out all of this to get yourself going for a raw material. Component ID, stocking unit measure, description. You're done. You can live with just that much and be able to do formulas. That's why this is basic training. I come back to that. All right. Other pieces that I haven't shown you as far as navigation that I think are cool, and they are going to be true throughout the system. I'm sorry. Should have done pretty well. Couple of different things. One would be what I call the smart lookup. I happen to love it. If you've only been in V2, you'll think it's wonderful. If I am in certain ID fields that are in the system, so like component ID here, I can key my actual ID if I know that. Or I can key part of the ID or the description and go from there. So if I wanted to look up my cake items, you know, I know cake is somewhere, some that impacts me. Type cake, hit tab. This shows me everything that has cake in either the ID or the description, either one. My V2 people were like, ah! People who have started on V4 are like, yeah, that's why we bought this system. All right. If I wanted to do, you know, sugar, I can't remember the item ID for sugar. Anywhere that it's in there. Now, if I key, you know, we don't want to slow things down for the people who actually know their item IDs. So if I know the item ID, if I key exactly what it is in tab, it's going to come up just like it always has for you in V2. Okay. This little part up here is called the Quick Access Toolbar. On your different screens, you will, the list might vary slightly, but I think almost all of them will have at least print, new, and save. Some might have a couple extra options. I love this. On component entry, it isn't as big of a deal because this ribbon didn't change very much on you. But particularly when you get to formula entry and batch entry, just like in your office products, the ribbon is context sensitive. So it changes based on where you are in the system. And so you may be deep into a formula and you want to save it, but you're no longer on the home menu. So this little save button isn't here. If you put it up in this quick access toolbar, it's always there for you. So I personally like to put that print, new, and save on there. You can also play with it some and have stuff show below the ribbon. You can minimize the ribbon altogether and make it go away if it's in your way, taking up too much space. So you can play with things like that. Anything else on raw material setup? Let me check my list. I think I covered. Do you have questions on raw material setup? Yes.
Well, okay, for me and for alcohol, you cover raw material, let's say it's alcohol, but we may have an intermediate strength. Will we be able to put that in the system as an intermediate, or will it still be listed as, let's say, raw material of 54 because it has a different strength?
So you're purchasing it as, and it's,
let's say I purchased it at 95%. I eventually want to get it down to 40%. Intermediate, at least at this stage, I'm taking it to, let's say, 65%, where I take off some at 65%, assign it to one particular person, and then reduce the rest of it. Is there a way I would have to create that in a second, or have raw material and then raw material at 65?
I think you're going to have separate components for each one of those. Because you're actually going to go through a manufacturing step to switch it from the 95 to the 65. Yeah, we'll go in the right direction. But each one of those is going to be a component. And The only one that's really the raw material is the way that you purchase it. And because for your reporting, it's 95% alcohol, 95%, 5% something else, you're probably also going to be using those reportable components so that you can clearly state only 95% of this is the alcohol, not 100%.
Is there a place in this where you would put an ingredient statement? So what would actually go on a specification sheet? Because maybe you call the description out as something else?
It's not, what you would do is somewhat design your document to figure out, and so chances are, like the chemical name is probably where you're gonna put the raw material name for whatever it is. As we design your document, we'll find places for all of your data. And some of it's gonna be simple, like for the raw material, put it in as a chemical name or whatever name you want to display on that. And then there may be some fields that aren't on here, which is when you're gonna flip over to the attributes instead. So we will find a place for all of that data, so you can then create whatever document you need.
And for people that do push data back into their ERP system, is that usually something you've done behind the scenes, or how do they come up with you?
So if you're gonna set up your ingredients in Vicinity first and then push?
Right, our Vicinity would be our master data, and then our ERP would be sort of a copy of the data because they need to access it. So when people do that, is that just something completely separate from the Vicinity?
Yeah, it ends up being fairly separate from Vicinity. We had one client that I can think of that did a customization that would transfer from one, but as a rule, because in your ERP you are going to have to set up additional ERP information, it's usually easier to just go set it up in your ERP, depending on your volume of items, that kind of thing, so that once you're done with it being a lab item, you actually go create it in the ERP.
Yeah, that's an intimidating question. We'll make finished product things, and then we'll use it to make code. So does that, do I have to enter the properties of the thing itself as a component in the component ID? Instead of pulling the formula from formula and pick up properties from there, would Vicinity do that, or do I have to do it?
The properties, so like your percent pigment, those kinds of things, at the moment my answer is you have to enter them. Properties you have to enter each level. There may be some stuff, particularly over the next 2 days you're going to hear from Lisa. We've done an integration with them if you're looking at doing your GHSs and stuff through them, where you may be able to enter the properties at the lowest level and then have it calculate to the others. But for now, and particularly within Vicinity itself, the property information is at every level. And that's as opposed to hazard information that only gets entered at the lowest raw material level, the purchase raw material level. It's kind of the difference between hazards and properties.
They're going to use 3E, not LESM. But when LESM talks, basically what they talk about is going to apply to you as well. It's going to be very similar. The two products are very similar. And our interaction would be the same between the two.
Other raw material? You promised not to tell that I let you out early. Then we can break.
You'll get a good teacher evaluation.
Yes, there will be evaluations at the end, remember this time. We'll start back up at 10 o'clock. And I think is that clock on time? It's not bad.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so you have a 20-minute break instead of 15.
Hey, Jennifer, you want to move?